algorithms work, whether they prefer 45 minutes or an hour and a half, you know?
Who knows? Who cares? Welcome to
Exactly.
that Japanese thing. Today we're talking about Paprika, the movie from 2006, I want to say. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yesh recommended this. It's by a famous director who Yesh will tell us about shortly, I'm sure. Because I can't remember his name.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hello, I'm also joined by Yash.
he said awkwardly. And after that, we'll be talking about a few more things, including the Winter 2023 anime rankings, as well as Japan apparently discovered 7,000 more islands than it thought it had. And the Japanese government is now playing Matchmaker, which is kind of exactly what the premise of that weird Netflix anime was.
Correct.
But before that, mid-2000s anime. Yash, take it away, Paprika. Also, welcome Dylan.
Paprika. Yes, I wanted to say hello, Dylan, and welcome as well.
Oh, thanks. Hi.
Hello, hello. So we watched Paprika because I had previously been suggesting movies by a different director, which was Weathering with You and Your Name. And in my efforts to introduce us to new directors, I thought we should get into Satoshi Kon. Oftentimes considered one of the most influential directors for some of the more modern era Marvel movies, amusingly, but also
Really?
assorted other films and things. Specifically, it's suggested that it has influence on the opening up of mental mindscapes to theater. Some suggestion that it was involved with, sorry, I'm trying to remember the name of that movie, Inception. Inception in particular is said to have some influence from Paprika.
I mean, it makes sense. I don't know if it's direct influence, but it makes
No,
sense.
not direct. None of this is absolutely direct, and none of this is entirely confirmed. But
Okay.
Satoshi Kon began with this diving into a person's mind and exploring their subconscious theme and concept way back in the day. And his fourth movie was Paprika, which debuted in 2006. And he's oftentimes credited with many of the auteur directors in the West starting to get a bit more focused on mindscapes and alternate realities.
It's also his final film, isn't it?
It's the final film that
Yep.
he released. He made a fifth
yeah.
film, but it was not 100% complete by the time he died. That film then was completed by a different set of directors, but upon its completion, the studio decided that without the touch of Satoshi Kon, without the final tightening of the screws, as it were, that movie just didn't have the focus or attention to detail that Satoshi Kon had. And in respect of him, they decided not to release a movie that would have been relatively his worst movie, effectively.
Oh, I see.
I mean, yeah, so he didn't live very long. He died at 46. And he released 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 films. in
5
total.
films in total. This was
many
his
of them you will
fourth.
recognize the name of if if you're old like us, and you might have seen Perfect Blue, Millennium Actress, Tokyo Godfathers. Paranoia Agent as well. I didn't actually know
Paranoia
that
Agent was
his.
a TV show that he was involved in the making of. Memories is a movie I'm going to suggest for us in a few weeks' time, probably 3 or 4. And then he was like a assistant art and storyboarder for lots of movies that are real popular or have been real popular. So this man has been involved with a lot of the major hits that we have enjoyed over the years, from our generation in particular. Sorry, Chris, you were saying?
No, I've heard people say that the reason he wanted to be a proper, like, real life director.
Mm-hmm. A
But-
live action director.
But he was always a bit crazy, and his ideas were too expensive to do.
As anyone who watches his movies will attest.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, pretty obvious in the first sort of like 5 minutes of Paprika that if this was made into a movie, it'd be one of the most expensive movies ever made.
Indeed.
I think we could do it. I mean, I think with today's technology, it's possible.
Well, that's
the cost
exactly
of
why.
CG's also gone down
Gone way
relative
down.
to other production costs. So I don't think it's actually like eventually I think it would be not
Very achievable. But it's kind of because that CG has become relatively achievable that people are suggesting that Satoshi Kon's wild view is starting to become like something that you see a lot more of. But Perfect Blue, for example, was suggested to be a very strong influence on the Black Swan movie, which had some very heavy mental problems and/or like it presented a what is it called when you can't trust the narrator?
Unreliable narrator.
It had an unreliable narrator with their mentality affecting the view, and then as the audience we go along with that ride.
Yeah, you get that. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes, I mean, my Japanese isn't perfect, and sometimes I just don't understand what's going on. So, but I don't think that was the case in this movie. I just think
Not
a
in Paprika.
lot of it just didn't make sense, and it wasn't supposed to be perfectly understandable at times.
Indeed. So shall we just give a quick summary of what the movie
That's a
was?
good idea. Yeah.
So in Paprika in particular, we are introduced to this new device or machine that allows one person to enter into another person's dream.
DC mini.
The inventor of this device is a little bit of a man-child who's quite a genius, but relatively irresponsible once he gets excited about something.
Yes.
And as such, during the invention of the device, he doesn't add safeties in to prevent this from being abused in any way.
Because why would
And
you?
as such, a particularly self-centered individual starts jumping into other people's dreams and taking over their bodies, their minds, and their like ambitions effectively, becoming an amalgamation of all ambition as it attempts to effectively become a god and take over the world while declaring that it's defending things, protecting the dream world from science. And this adventure is a sort of mixed reality between the real world and the subconscious invading into the dreamland monstrosity in a way, because it's kind of hard to follow. But there's a lot of reality mixing as people's view of the world is different and their dreams are completely different to their realities. But at the core of this movie is the idea that balance is the ultimate requirement. Balance is the thing that will save us from anything. As everyone in this movie has a problem balancing things in their lives.
So I think maybe that's a good summary, but also slightly confusing, right?
Yes.
So
yeah,
there's like a real world plot where this DC mini machine is being made by this morbidly obese genius creator guy. Like his weight is made fun of many times. That's why I bring it up. Like the first time we see him, he's stuck in an elevator. He's too big to get out the door.
Too big to exit the elevator.
And has to be pulled out by the heroine. Which actually that's a good scene because it comes back later and it shows this like actually not as like she's not quite as mean as she first appears to be in those scenes. But then there's the dream world where there's this girl called Paprika, and she's kind of bubbly, I don't know, or just
playful
very
and forthright. She is very hot on her sleeve.
She reminds me a lot of the Amelie character.
Yeah.
Like very adventurous, very like open to life, not afraid of a lot.
red hair, obviously Paprika, same sort of color as the
Lots
actual
of
spice.
bright colors as well.
And yeah, she's always smiling in every scene. There's never actually a point in the movie where she isn't smiling, except maybe that one horrific scene, which we'll talk about.
The one
later.
scene is the one time she's not smiling, but every time else, yes.
And it sort of quickly becomes clear that this is like the dream version of the female protagonist, whose name is more mundane.
Achan. Yeah. I mean, either the dream version protagonist, or also sort of like a part of her mind that seems to be like more free than other people's, that sort of sees itself differently. Because
And this,
they often are at odds with each other. Achan
Mm.
can actually interact with Paprika,
that's
whereas
Paprika.
everyone else doesn't have a separate persona.
so this brings us directly back to that, like I was saying, balance being something that's important for everyone. Chiba Atsuku, or Achan, is too controlled in the real world. She's always bearing her emotions, and it makes her seem cold and cruel. She never does anything for fun. She never does anything to make herself happy. And in the dream world, this is represented by Paprika being her complete opposite. She has effectively cut her later on in the movie as well. We find out that she says she doesn't dream anymore because she is no longer connected to the dream world.
Right.
She has completely separated herself into Paprika, who's allowed to enjoy herself, and Chiba, who's not allowed to do anything fun ever.
Yeah.
Paprika is also a personality that is far, like, has far more access to whimsical things that would come from the freedom of dreaming. So she, she can fly or be a mermaid or whatever the case might be.
She has Disney powers, basically. Tinkerbell-like powers.
Yeah. Whereas other people seem to be more at the mercy of the dream. They're not, like, in control of the dream, right?
Yeah.
So they can't, like, suddenly start flying necessarily.
And they're both kind of perfect, right? So she portrays like a outgoing kind of perfect woman, and then like a stern kind of strict, but still quite perfect individual, right?
Who's a great office worker, a fantastic scientist in real life,
Pretty,
but
people
she's
like
someone
her.
who enjoys life
Yeah.
and lives freely in the dream world.
Exactly.
I mean, I would
Also,
like
she's the only person who talks to herself in the dream world. Like, they're completely separate.
Yeah, I'd like to add that Achan is also the sort of for Japanese society, like the perfect sort of professional workplace member. There's no showing of emotion. It's all about the job. The rest of it, whereas Paprika,
literally everyone else around her is insane, right?
yeah,
To a certain extent, yeah. Although I will say, Shima Totaro, the direct boss of her, the bald guy,
yeah.
he seems the most balanced out of everyone. He's not a great character, but
You mean the
he
short,
has
the short guy?
the
with
short bald
The
guy,
short,
correct.
yeah. The section chief. Yeah.
The guy who's the friend of the detective.
Yeah.
He is laughing and happy, but also in a position of power within his workplace. Like, for example, the director couldn't shut down the project without him being present.
So, I mean, this is going to a little bit of spoilers from here on out. So, you got the
Indeed.
basics for Evan. It's like a visually stunning movie. If you haven't seen it, like, it's one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
Why does he jump out that window? I don't
So,
understand.
what was happening at that point in the movie is that the dreams were all connecting together into a super dream.
Okay.
And in the super dream, Seijiro, who's Seijiro? The director? I forget what his title is.
You mean the dude in
the wheelchair guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the villain?
The director's dream was taking over everyone else's dreams, but only people who had directly been exposed to the device or exposed to the waves from the device were susceptible in the beginning of the movie.
See,
So
I view those more as assassination attempts, where the person put him in a
Psychosis.
dream walking state. No, a dream walking state. So normally your body would be, sort of self paralyzed. So you're
While you're
dreaming and there's
sleeping,
no
yeah.
movement, very little movement. And
No.
it happens to many people throughout this thing where it's convenient for them to die, that they just suddenly, like, in their dream leap off of something, and in real life have leapt off of something.
So, Osanai, who is like a secondary scientist in this group, or perhaps even a tertiary scientist,
Okay.
and Inui Seijiro, the director, are both trying to make this reality where they are in control of this technology and everyone's dreams happen. And I believe that they were actually pushing for these people to die. But Osanai wouldn't have minded if the leader of the group died, but he would never allow Atsuko to die. And later on, while they are exploring where this device that has been stolen is gone, he enters into that psychosis mega dream thing and almost jumps off of a building.
Mm.
I do think it gets out of their control, and everyone starts just being part of the psychosis eventually. I don't think that it was purely intentional, but yes,
Yeah.
you're right. It's entirely possible this first one, where he runs out and tries to jump off a building, was entirely because they
that's sort
forced
of
it.
the first hint that like things are going crazy, I guess, right? Because it begins with sort of a normal conversation and then gets more and more animated and then eventually starts running down the corridor, I guess.
And what he's saying makes less and less sense. So it really starts to give you this sense of dread, as if his mind is being pulled away.
Yeah.
I really found that like mixture of terrifying and like I couldn't pull my eyes away. As a side note,
Yeah.
everything in this movie is animated spectacularly.
And
There's a kind of surreal unrealness to it.
just now thinking about it, you can't separate in your mind entirely what happened in the real world and what happened in a dream.
No, not at all. Because how you perceive everything is through the eyes of our protagonists.
Yeah.
And our protagonists start slipping into the dream world while awake, halfway through the movie. Not even halfway through the movie.
No,
they are-
right from the beginning,
is-
right? Like,
Yeah, there is
like the
definitely a-
detective interacts with Paprika in the real world in the beginnings, so to speak.
Kind of,
When
yeah.
he kind of wakes up from his dream. Like, did that actually happen? You know what I mean?
Not really.
Yeah,
but,
They put in that continual like sanity check of wondering whether or not that person's experience that you're busy watching at that moment in time is in the real world or whether it's in the dream world. But
And
there
there's-
is a transition point that's very definite where like that giant doll, they're walking through the sky bridge, right, and the giant doll starts attacking. That is a definite transition to the merging of dream world to reality.
yeah, absolutely.
Where there's like a direct physical effect on things, because once they come out of their dream state,
Does that actually happen, though?
yes, it does. Because once they're out of their dream state, that city is still in shambles.
No, I
There
realize
has
that,
been-
right? I realize that, but is that just like an Inception thing? Or have they woken up? Is my
Yeah,
point.
well, I mean, that the only other interpretation of it is that everyone is still dreaming and they're all going to die emaciated in the real world.
I mean, another way was I thought perhaps there's like a kind of mass hysteria kind of thing that goes on that causes the damage.
So that's exactly it. The mega dream starts eating everyone else's dreams and pulling their subconsciouses.
Yeah,
And then their waking selves get effectively poisoned.
right.
They start being unable to tell reality from dream.
I mean, I don't know how the giant hole forms, in this theory we're having right now.
Yeah, but that's
guess-
why
Yeah.
that's why I said the only way I can interpret it, given the ending of the film, is with them being awake, or at least supposedly awake, is that there is this merging of real world, like physics, and the dream world
And the
at this
dream
point in time, just when everyone's having this mass hallucination.
How does... What?
Don't think about it too much, Chris.
I know, I
I think that's the point.
just like... So only 6 of these machines are stolen, right? And,
But
It's
only
3.
6 exist as far as I'm aware. 3
Yeah,
that's
6
stolen.
well,
exists,
7,
3
because we
gets
see
stolen,
1
yeah.
being made, right? But
Right. So 7 gets made in the runtime. Yeah.
But why does everyone in the city go mad? Is my question.
So that's what's happening, right? Because these machines were stolen and taken across the city, those machines started to emit their waves, the thing that allow you to enter into the dream states, all over the city. The one guy went to a park, another guy used it at like the high-end area, a third person was using it at a hospital. It started to spread as the machine's use kept infecting more people. From the perspective of the movie, this mega dream, this dream that's kind of being controlled by the director, is kind of spreading to other people as he forces their minds into his mega dream.
Yeah.
And the spread is kind of like a disease more than like a physical phenomena.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
definitely get the feeling that it starts taking over him, right, which we've previously discussed, but it also changes the way that he dreams.
Mhm.
And there's also like a small subplot which isn't there's no exposition to, so it's all like open to conjecture, where he seems to want to kind of merge or use, is it Asana's buddy, the
He wants to take over
Someone.
Osana's body fully. Yeah.
So he wants to kind of merge consciousness with this person through this dream thing, and it
Yeah,
starts
I mean, he wants to take over the body, I think is
it
what
starts
he's actually
to
doing.
muddle with sort of a dream nature. So there's definitely like a hint that a dream isn't like the dream state or world isn't necessarily isolated to an individual, but there are ways that it can interconnect with everyone and eventually the real world as well.
Mm-hmm. And you really
Yeah.
start to see it losing control, like everyone's losing control, as there's no reason for the director to kill randoms. But as the parade goes through the town, sort of in the semi-real world,
Yeah.
there's just a line of office workers
Yes.
saluting and jumping off of a building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very Monty Python kind of like scene there. That's the more crazy parade, the second parade that may or may not have happened in the real world,
Mm-hmm.
or happened in some fashion in the real world, was very entertaining.
Honestly, that song, every time it started playing, gave me a mixture of dread and, like, confusion.
I'd forgotten the music that came from Paprika. It's good. Both
It's
both
good.
the
It's a
songs.
very good song.
Yeah.
But, like, when we're talking with the detective and Paprika in the movie studio, as we're uncovering the detective's trauma, and then the fucking band just bursts in,
Right.
it really starts to feel like, oh no, we're not doing this emotional thing anymore. Now we are just a horror show.
I just want to like point out how well they did that like mass parade march, how well they did that, because every time it comes in, it's not unwelcome. You just start bobbing to it and you're like, yeah, this is cool.
I know. I think it's necessary
Let
for
me
the
join
movie
this.
not to feel overly horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
For these
Yeah.
weird, surreal things to happen, because it's terrifying at times, especially when she's like kind of flying through the hollow remains of the other guy
The other scientist.
that gets
yeah.
offed in the beginning.
So Himuro K, or Himuro Kon, was like an assistant to our super genius.
Yeah, they were
And then
friends,
suddenly
yeah.
he like steals a device and goes and starts doing crime, effectively.
Sort of,
But
yeah.
then we find out that the director emptied his body out in his mind.
yeah,
and wore him
consumed his
like a
mind,
skin
so to
suit.
speak. Oh, God, absolutely horrifying, really, isn't it?
When you see the body like slowly decaying in front of her, it was just like, oh god.
Yeah.
And you really understand what a monster he has become.
Should we speak about the weird scientist for a while? The fat guy,
Oh, the fat guy, Tokita.
Tokita.
Mm.
I kind of thought he was just going to be like an American guy, like a Western insert into the
So
story.
he is presented as effectively someone who can't resist his passions.
Right.
Yes.
He can't resist eating, he can't resist inventing. Even if it's not safe, even if it's not good for him, he will never resist his passion.
I don't know. He says
It's
like
like
you know,
all-consuming.
food is necessary for war, and he's waging a war, I guess, on something.
Yeah, but also that he has this sort of hunger for every experience in life, and just wants to consume it all. Which is why when like his form merges with Paprika's at the end, like they're able to just consume
eat.
the bad guy completely.
I don't know. That was a weird symbolic fight, really. So yeah, so he
I mean, dream. Yeah.
he goes rogue and tries to get into his friend who's Catatonic's head, you know, to try and get
To
him
find
of
out
it.
why he would betray him.
And obviously it's a dumb thing to do, and that sort of starts off the final battle. But he gets kind of ensnared by the chairman and becomes a robot, which is a kind of weird turn of events I didn't really understand. I guess it was
I
just
think-
a
So,
convenient
when
thing.
they were-
Robot would be his form in his
Mhm.
mind.
So when they went to Himuro's house to investigate, remember the bit where she almost jumped off of a balcony?
Sure.
Yeah.
In
There was robots on the wall.
his face was stuck on that robot's body in Himuro K's room. As we found out that Himuro K made dolls, lots of dolls, hundreds of dolls.
Yeah.
That's some
So
interesting
he
books.
put himself, I feel Tokita put himself in that form because he thought he was going to go meet Himuro and try to talk to Himuro. So
Right.
he put himself in a form that would fit in Himuro's dream nightmare.
And that is how they connected, because that abandoned amusement park, that's where that robot is from. So you'll see that robot's iconography.
Well, I mean, he
in
was
that
wearing
amusement
a
park as well.
pseudo
A
Astro
shirt.
Boy kind of thing on his.
No, I'm saying this because at that point in time at the amusement park, I was like, hang on a second, and I rewound, and that was what was on the wall as graffiti. So there is that link continually, which is really well done in the anime. There's that link that constantly like connects the mental scapes of Tokita-kun and his apprentice, which is the guy who's been hollowed out.
Yeah.
So taking that form of the robot kind of makes sense because you're sort of inside the inside of this guy's head.
But there's also like another fat joke in the Mega Dream, where not Paprika, it's actually Atsuko at this point in time. Atsuko in the dream world, which is rare, says that no one can take Tokita on because they can't hollow him out, which feels like there's too much of him too empty.
She says like his fat is so thick he can't reach the nerves, I think. Yeah.
So they make a kind of a fat joke about why he would be so powerful.
Yeah,
And
no,
when we encounter him, he is also not affected by the madness of the chairman, but he wants to express his love for Atsuko. That's the thing that drives him, not the madness at all.
yeah, and his love takes the form of eating things. So.
Yes,
Yeah,
his
and
love
he
takes the form of
he
eating
eats
things.
her. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, the reason she's in the dream world is highly absurd. It's like basically like there's a rape scene that happens in this. So just be
There's
warned.
Yeah,
especially like the mental aspects of it. I know that it like visually might seem less, I don't know, less severe, but I know people
No,
that would
man.
not. Yeah, I
His-
know people who wouldn't do well with it.
Yeah.
his hands under her skin and forcing her to show her real
So
self.
Paprika gets captured,
Ooh.
right? And then
Yeah.
the man in the dream world puts his hand into her and rips off the skin of
The
Paprika,
persona, yeah, like
leaving just the
Paprika
naked
persona.
form of the actual person underneath.
Her,
It's pretty
her
horrifying.
real self.
Who then
That is.
gets
And like,
assaulted by like
so
weird
he
tentacles,
could hurt the real her.
tree tentacles
Yeah.
or whatever, from the director.
But thankfully, our happy-go-lucky detective guy fulfills his dream.
Yeah, and for some reason, he's in the dream world, which I guess
So,
makes some
This
sense.
is
but
part
also
of the
not.
mega dream, where this guy is trying to take over everybody's dreams, and because the detective has been exposed to the device,
Yeah.
he gets sucked into the dream world.
Yeah.
Anyone who's been exposed to the device will get sucked in by the direct detective
And
thing.
he's been exposed quite a lot and dealing with trauma throughout that process. So it feels like, he's got this like upfront relevance to the whole
His
event.
his,
as kind of-
his storyline is the least I don't know,
Interesting?
maybe least necessary in the movie. I think it's
There was a lot of the storyline that was kind of talking about Satoshi Kon's own story, I feel. Where as a person who makes
exactly.
movies,
He's a director self-insert kind of character.
so it's a lot like M. Night Shyamalan's insert into the
Any movie.
Water Woman or whatever that movie is. It's there because it's an ego thing and it's like talking about his own story, but it's also kind of not necessary for the overarching story. Still, on the other side of the coin, because he retreats back into his own dream where he gets to set the rules a little bit more, and we get to go through his entire psychosis of being Tarzan and getting choked in an elevator and stuff.
It's such a great little like dip into the mind of like a kind of 80s raised like man, isn't it? Just the movies he likes, like Tarzan, the spy dramas.
And like everything about his face and everything is just the most typical 80s bro.
He's a perfect 80s detective. I mean, he would be in a Die Hard movie.
And like I don't know, I actually felt a little bit of warmth when at the end of the movie everyone's getting their little send-offs, and his is as he's walking away, in one of the windows he can see a reflection of his best friend saying, "You didn't do me wrong. You just did what you needed to."
Yeah, you lived out the movie making process in real life. Yeah.
So I thought that was like it wrapped well, but I will agree that it did
Something
feel kind of
I
superfluous
didn't
for
really
80%
get
of the movie.
was supposedly the movie was setting him up as the love interest for Paprika, I guess.
No, he was interested in her, but she never displayed interest in him.
But that's what I meant. I mean, I didn't really get it either way, because it just seemed so she seems so unattached to him at all times.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
Yeah.
the language they use kind of hints that like he was pursuing her, I guess.
Yes,
And he was vaguely
yes.
obsessed with her. I guess that makes sense.
There was a definite feeling of interest in her. But you could also feel like he was more interested in the freedom she gave him than being interested in her as a person.
Yeah, I always thought it was just he wanted to like do more of the dream stuff and kind of work out his stuff with the work. It's like,
I mean, it's for the same reason why Manic Pixie is so appealing to a lot of people. Like it's a lot of fun. I wouldn't describe Paprika as Manic Pixie, but there is that element of impulsiveness and whimsy that you.
I mean,
get fun
to be
from
fair,
that.
she literally becomes a pixie at one point in the movie.
Yeah.
also
yeah.
Goku.
Also Goku.
Yes, that
Yeah.
was very cool when she was Goku.
Well, I thought that was a great way of telling us that she is hyper powerful in this world.
Yeah.
it's also
Very,
just like
very-
a love letter to Disney. That's at some
And
point.
bartenders.
Yeah, bartenders is just also something that's nonsensical and you have to accept.
They're
as part of
they're
this
the
movie.
best advisors in the universe and the best guys in the universe as well. For some reason, I don't know why,
I think
but
that,
whenever they're needed, they're there.
I think they may have been like a physical manifestation of chat rooms, right?
Entirely
that's
possible,
what-
but I feel like they were attached to the detective.
Because they were kind of like the Japan Radio Times sort of. I think that's what they were supposed to be. That's why it was called like the Radio Club. And Radio Times is like, I mean, the English one is basically the original review place where you would go and write online reviews and such.
Mm-hmm.
And that was connected to some reason because he was the detective who was obsessed with films but hated films. So I guess that's why that was there. But for some reason, the bartenders knew everything, which is why,
And were
which is why I
always the
started
most
thinking
helpful.
they were lots of different people who kind of had like a collective knowledge of things. But then both of them didn't really have personalities of their own at the same
No,
time.
they were certainly just support.
And they kind of knew what was going to happen, which I think is like something only like a collective entity could predict, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they said something like, "Oh, well, you'll need to be here to help clean up afterwards," sort of thing, right? When the final battle was just about to begin, and yeah, they got a bit bruised in the battle, which is another reason why I think like there are just a lot of people who took kind of collateral damage. But yeah, they didn't feel strictly necessary to the story. Same with the detective. I mean, I think you could have condensed that down into a more streamlined plot that might have worked a bit better. But it's not a very long movie, so.
It's not a long movie, hour and a half.
Who haven't we met? Oh, and then obviously Paprika and her counterpart Atsuko.
Atsuko.
Kind of working through their problems. And it turns out, like, after this, that she's just kind of in love with the mad scientist dude.
Rokita.
And
we get to see that her being cold to him is because she wants to be near him more.
yeah. And that brings you back to that scene in the beginning where she's pulling him out of the elevator. It's sort of expanded when she gets eaten by him in the dream world. You see one of her dreams.
Yeah.
Where she's just kind of, when she's pulled him out, she kind of, he's a bit depressed at the fact that he got stuck in the elevator, and she's kind of just nice to him, and gives him like a little hug, right? That was like a nice little sentimental moment there, before everything went crazy, and people started eating each other. I don't know, how did you feel about their little love story?
I feel like they did a pretty great job of it, actually. Because initially, it felt like Atsuko was not as, like, talkative or interactive with anyone else. So I was confused why she was talking to him so much, while also being so negative. But you start to see that she's unwilling to abandon him ever. So when he's in the dream state, because he refuses to not go in, because it's dangerous, she dives in immediately to go rescue him.
Right.
And when she's talking to people, she has absolute faith that they can't hurt him. And she says it's because he's fat and stuff, but she doesn't have faith in anyone else, only him.
Yes.
And so when she finally says it, and you see that Paprika says, "Oh, she's actually dreaming," you really get the impression that her walls are finally down, and this is who she really is.
She's
And
also
it actually feels
very insulting to him about his weight, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I learned that there was, like, from this movie, I learned that there's an opposite to anorexia. I can't remember what it was called.
The exact word is.
Yeah, but apparently that's what she like says to him in the diner. You sure you don't have this thing?
Overconsumption. But it really, like, I don't know, it felt like it was peeling back the layers and it made perfect sense.
And
I felt like I watched everybody's therapy session. Does that make sense?
you know, it definitely had that kind of working through issues sort of vibe about it.
Mm-hmm. And the director's issues made him like.
Yeah, the director's
this
issues were
horrific
dwelled
monster.
on a bit too much throughout this. That's the one downside to the movie is you get a lot of 40-year-old man kind of stuff going through this, which sadly we're getting close to. So maybe it'll be a better movie in 10 years time. But did you guys get the doll thing throughout the movie?
I noticed a doll theme, but I didn't get what it meant in any particular way.
So there's like
unless you mean that he uses other people like dolls.
There is that, right? But there's also like this, particularly like the small child doll.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a monster in Japanese mythology called Azaski Warashi. Whatever. And it brings you fortune. That's the first thing it does. It moves into your house. It usually moves into like a business person's house, a merchant's house, as they would have said back in the day. And then it makes that person really rich. And thereafter, it destroys them completely. And I think that's kind of something that happened throughout this. Like the guy that was obsessed with dolls, got the good job, got all the attention from all his superiors, and then was like consumed from the inside.
Mm.
And then the chairman is always pretending to be a doll in the dreams, so as I suppose not to be exposed. Gets everything he wants, and then is literally like consumed, body and soul, by the end of the movie. And if the dream world is coming through, I mean that's literally what happens, right? There's no, he's completely eaten away, and there's nothing left of him. I don't know. I thought maybe that was something he was trying to suggest.
It's certainly part of the language. And because I'm not that familiar with Japanese lore, I didn't particularly catch that.
What did you think about the iconography of the parade? I don't know if you guys were like trying to look and see what was in it. Did you?
The hollow suits of armor.
Hollow suits of armor.
Like a lot of containers, like fridges and post boxes and that kind of thing. Hollow containers. So there's a lot of the hollow themes in them. But also the frogs were also quite interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the frogs were about.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's a specific thing I just don't really get. But there were like a bunch of just money things as well. I don't know if you noticed. For instance, the cat behind my head, the Statue of Liberty. I know that's not really a money thing, but like I think all the American iconology in it was kind of like capitalism related.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good argument.
And I thought like the suits of armor were kind of like maybe like imperial like things. It's all just kind of fantasies.
Yeah, I thought fantasies because there was a lot of stuff like the raccoons and stuff that just feel like somebody's idea of what they would see in their dreams.
Yeah. I was like, it was for me, it was either like a weird sex thing, a money thing, or a fantasy of some sort.
Well, I mean, like a lot of the themes are about like more shallow pursuits, whether it's money or the sex or status. It's all like it's not about pursuing what's the deeper things that could drive you. But I mean, that's just more of a theme. It's not like a definite.
I think I like when what they do in anime is when you get a more realistic face of a character as well.
Yeah.
I mean, in modern anime, it's so streamlined that you can hardly tell what a person would look like in real life. And the more the dream progressed, the more realistic the people in it became.
Mm-hmm.
And until you get to the salaryman scene, right? And those people are those might be people who worked on the film for all we know, right? They were very well caricatured. And
they laughed.
as they laughed as they jumped off the buildings. And I wonder if that was like when Dreamworld becomes, the reality, I guess, at that point. Anyway, I love this movie. I give it a 8 out of 10. Yes?
I personally give this movie an 8 out of 10. I would suggest it, and I enjoyed my time with it.
Dylan, you can ramble.
Yeah, I can ramble. I'm not going to ramble. It's very good. Go watch it.
Sweet. Dylan also gives it an 8 out of 10. Alright, everyone, watch this movie. And now we're going to speak a little bit about a couple of news stories and then just the winter anime rankings as ranked by 3 different sites. I just want to point out that I don't know if the Japanese government got this from an anime, but they are now playing with romantic matchmaking in a bid to increase the birth rate, which is literally the plot of Romantic Killer. I mean, I assume they don't have access to wizards, but you never know.
One hopes.
People are a bit, I don't know, they're a bit sensationalist about the birth rate in Japan, and I think it's a real problem, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's a real problem in every successful country at the moment, but it's really masked in places like America and Europe by like huge rates of immigration.
Mm-hmm.
Like the British population, native population, hasn't really changed in the last 150 years. Because British people have trouble with replacing themselves. The more successful American population is the same, but America has such a huge immigration rate that the population continues to grow and it's not really an issue. Japan is less willing to let people in, so I guess that's why this is happening. And I don't think it's reasonable to expect women to have more children. They don't want to.
Yeah.
And it's not going to work. Right?
Yeah, it's a non-solution in my mind. It's like they've looked at it and they're like, well, we could either keep being solidly Japanese and having more Japanese children specifically, or we could make it easier to open up immigration. That's not an option.
I mean, frankly, it's a little bit of a racist solution, isn't it?
You're not seeing the whole picture. It's not so easy to open up your borders. Then you might let someone who's not Japanese in.
Exactly.
That's what he's saying, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm being sarcastic. Carry on.
No, thank you, Yash. You're too dry for us, apparently.
Yeah. So it isn't, but it won't. I agree with you. It's not going to work. The only thing that will work is immigration. But then this is also tied to the economics of it, and that economic growth is essentially boiled.
Yeah, and I mean, people like
growth.
me would move to Japan because it's a nice place to live. But most people are going to pick the best country to move to if they're going to move to a place, right?
Mm-hmm. If you're moving already, might as well give yourself the best advantage.
Might as well go to America. Might as well go to China. Might as well go to Europe, right? It's Japan. Japan needs to have had an immigration policy in the 80s to offset this kind of thing. At this point, it might just not work.
An economically declining country with a declining population is just not somewhere people want to go to.
I wouldn't say Japan is per capita economically declining, right? It's just it hasn't seen growth because it doesn't have more people in it. Yeah.
Just on a side tangent, this is a thing with me. It's this constant expectation for growth, which is unsustainable. Like a different model of just having a sustainable like economy
Yeah.
is.
And I think we will
But
see
the
that
problem
at
is
some
that you've got to
point.
kind of compete. Like globally, that might not be
That's
feasible.
what I'm saying, Dylan. Even if a country can't have growth every year, as long as a country has growth last year, people will look at that country a
Yeah.
lot more.
Yeah, but not just that. Also, like it definitely feels like the system is such that if you're not growing, you're declining. Now
Mhm.
that is probably false to a large extent. I mean, like looking at Japanese inflation not being a thing until this year. Japan was still a very nice place. It's not like it's
Yeah, I
scummy
mean,
or anything.
me and you have been to Japan, and
Yeah.
it's very comfortable. People make enough money in yen, at least. I mean, the dollar value of what they make has been going down, right? But there is inflation again, and people are talking about upping salaries. So maybe that won't always be the case. And yeah, I mean, I think it is for some reason people do think about the whole like you need growth, otherwise you're losing. And that's true for most nations who have growing populations. So, and I mean, people are not wrong to think about that, but maybe it is kind of wrong to think about Japan that way. But anyway, that's not the point of this. The point of this is that's not going to work. But something that is nice is that YouTube has a bunch of anime that have just been released on it for free. Including Death Note, Sailor Moon, Naruto, Hunter x Hunter, Inuyasha, and Mr. Osomatsu, which I don't know what Mr. Osomatsu is.
Asamatsu-kun!
Yesh, maybe you can tell us?
Sorry, it's a very long-running, sort of semi-slice-of-life gag, I suppose, anime. It was a manga long before it was an anime. It's relatively popular. I think it's like 30 years old or something.
Right. Okay, apparently it's about the everyday lives of identical sextuplets.
Sextuplets, the Osamatsus, yeah.
But anyway, all these anime are now just on YouTube, and you can watch them.
Is it posted by the actual studios or?
I believe so.
It's at least published with their permission.
And I know Aniplex was doing a bunch of this sort of stuff every now and then. The shows didn't tend to stay on forever, but every now and then they would release one of their old shows just for the hell of it. So this is nice.
Just
but
referring to Osamatsu-kun again for a second, it began publication in 1962.
Right.
And it's every so often gets released. New things get released for it.
Apparently, there's a new series every now and then. So yeah. Anyway, that'll take us to some anime rankings. So I went to 3 sites. I went to ANN, Anime News Network. I went to Anime Corner, and I went to MAL, My Anime List. And what do you guys think is the #1 anime of winter 2023, according to online opinion polls, essentially?
Last season, I don't know.
Vinland Saga?
You're right, yes. Vinland Saga is #1. And
there's so little on this list that I can consider something I would watch.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. No, that's exactly.
This is a bad season from what I'm seeing.
And I tried Vinland Saga season 2, and I stopped at the first episode. I
don't want to watch that anymore. I think I got what I wanted from the first 5 episodes of Vinland Saga.
I have to admit something, Chris.
Yeah.
I actually thought that would be #2 because I thought #1 would be something like How to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon or Body Daddies.
So they're on the list, right? Actually,
I didn't want to say them because I would be depressed if that was it.
has a by episode ranking as well, which
that's insane.
Don't really understand why they have that. But their one is Vinland Saga, as is Mel's. Anime Corner has a Blue Lock as this, which is wrong because Blue Lock was last season. I guess it's ongoing, so maybe that makes sense. The reason I got the anime corner on it is because I think they're slightly less objective. So they have slightly different ones. Mel and ANN are just big enough that it's just the trash at the top, so to speak. Number 2, of course, Yash, is How to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Season 4.
Oh,
It's 3 on Mel. Bungo Stray Dogs, the 4th season, is number 2 on Mel.
hang on. There are 2 or 3 good shows this season.
There are a number of good shows this season, I would say.
Is Tomo-chan not doing well? And is Tondemo Skill
Tomo-chan,
Isekai?
I believe, is a Crunchyroll exclusive, right? Everywhere except for Japan. So, because it's not, you can get it in Japan, but it airs a week later than it does in the West for some reason. On most of the streaming sites, unless you pay for the service. So it's not as popular as in Japan, and that's kind of hurting the popularity, even though it has
so bad. Tomo is
voice actors and
great.
such. Yeah. It's one of my favorites, but it's 22.
I'm looking at what I'm watching this season, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
22.
22.
I'm gonna stay silent now.
22 and about 15, respectively. So it's down there. One that I did think would be popular was The Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten, and indeed it is. It's number 5 on Mal, and not... Where is it on this one? Actually, it's below Tomo-chan on ARN. So 23 there. So these lists are not completely in agreement all the time, I guess.
It's good to get multiple views.
And then there are things that, are of course really popular, like Precure, but maybe things that should just be ignored by people who are interested in seasonal anime, so to speak. Because that's just it's like having another season of One Piece, alright?
Pretty precure.
Magical Revolution of Reincarnated Princess is doing surprisingly well. That's like number 7. And I didn't think was even sort of worth watching. And it's kind of climbing up in the rankings, strangely enough. This shows you week to week, and it's just kind of going up and up. Buddy Daddies is not as high or as low as I would have thought. It's out of top 10 for all of these things. And then going to Anime Corner's like just slightly less objective one. It has things like Kubo, Won't Let Me Be Invisible, at number 6. And The Ice Guy and His Cool Female Colleague at number 9.
Whatever.
Which are both worth watching relative to some of the other stuff that is on the, more trafficked kind of rankings, I would say. Is anything you guys are surprised is not on the list, though?
Trigun.
I'm not surprised Trigun's not on the list.
Yeah, I'm not surprised either. I mean, like we've been holding off so that we.
I haven't watched it, but
Exactly.
I think the most telling thing is Aniplex's YouTube promos for Trigun have the comment sections turned off.
Yep.
So I think that's not going very well for them.
I am gonna bring a bottle of I don't drink a lot, but I'm gonna bring a bottle of whiskey for our viewing party because I think
I will
We need
find a
we
way
need to
to
arrange
enjoy
this.
this.
We need to arrange this. Maybe we can do it next weekend.
Well, has it finished?
Well, it would
Is
have
it unfinished?
had
It's
8 episodes.
slated
by
for
this point?
12 episodes. It's slated for 12.
Yeah. So let's. I don't want to do it twice, guys. Please, can we just knock it off? I mean, I don't know if you could do it in a single sitting, but
Yeah, I don't know if we should do it in a single sitting. That might be torture.
my liver's gonna hate me.
One that's doing surprisingly well is the second series of Inspector.
Inspector's
And
a good show.
It had the most amazing 3 of the 4 first episodes. It was a completely different show for a while, and it was kind of monogatari, like good. So I recommend just watching those 3 episodes about the snow woman and the businessman. And then it went back to its normal kind of like premise, which now feels like a downgrade. So
Oof.
I don't know. Maybe that's not a great thing. I'm kind of surprised the cooking show isn't doing better. You know, being both about
It's a
cooking
really fun
and
isekai.
having the best mascot of the season in Sui. Nagatoro is also not doing so well. Which is strange because it did very well in its opening season. And one thing that I was kind of surprised about, that I kind of actually liked, was the farming one. Isekai non Nyoka, farming life in another world. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. It's definitely kind of horror-y in a weird way, but not in like the kind of the gross way that some of the other shows have been. You know, there's no slaves or anything strange. Trigun is only doing slightly better than Onimai. Dylan will be happy to know.
What?
I mean, that is pretty much the rankings in my mind. The worst is Onimai, followed by Trigun. So
Yes. Well, on one of the lists anyway. So, Onimai.
checks out. That checks out.
Ooh, actually, well, you say that right. So Onimai went from 43rd in first week to 35th to 30th to 25th. So if it keeps on going at this rate, it's going to be pretty high up there by the end of it. We can track Trigun if you want as well. That might be interesting. Trigun started at 26th and went up to 24th, down to 25th, and then has climbed to 19th. So that's also going up again. I don't know if it's improving or not. I guess we'll find out eventually, or not at all.
The majority of its votes on Mel are for an 8 out of 10.
Yeah. Which I could understand if you've never seen Trigun before and you don't hate the animation style.
We'll chat about it.
We'll chat about it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. From what I've seen, I disagree. But I get that I'm biased because of the comparison. But
Just going back to that Inspector thing. First
Yeah.
episode did okay. It was at 15. And then, it went Monogatari good for 3 episodes. And it went up to 8th place. And now it's just gone back down to where it was again. So people agreed, apparently, with that assessment. And yeah, that's the state of anime at the moment. There's some good stuff, at least, to watch. It definitely isn't as good as the previous couple of seasons, unfortunately. But it's not a bad time to be watching anime. Alright guys, thanks for listening. I've been Chris.
I've been Yash.
And I'm Dill. Thanks.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.